And they tried to put it under 580B. That's what Corbett originally tried to amend 580B and change it so that the second was just only addressed going down that way. And through the Senate, through the amendments and the debates going down that way, they said, well, we already got it in place. Why don't we just fix what we have? So they actually went through, and I've got copies of anybody's that board that they want to see the edited portion of it going down that way. But they edited the bill. They literally lined out first mortgagor, and then they lined out a whole section, and then what was originally proposed by Ms. Corbett to the Senate back in February, they lined that all out and just said, no, we're not going to do that, and let's do it to this statute here. So I think it's a better result, because if you read what she originally had in there, I don't think it would have been as effective as this is going to be. But once again, with that caveat in mind, it's going to make life more difficult on the negotiation aspects of it.
Okay, I just still can't get off the fact that how are we going to put money if Uncle Johnny wants to do it for the seller, and if everybody says, I don't care where the money comes from, they don't care?
Well, when you put on HUD, when you put on the HUD report, you put money from Uncle Johnny. You account for that money comes from. It doesn't say seller's contribution. It doesn't say mortgagor's trustors or mortgagee or seller. It says Uncle Johnny to get it closed. Third party Uncle Johnny puts the money into the account.
Because if the second one's 5 to close it and they're not going to come after them, our sellers are going to find Uncle Johnny to give the 5.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. But it's our government, and I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Our government tries to protect us from ourselves, but then when you're protecting someone, a lot of times you remove the ability for them to step up and say, I want to get this taken care of. The public policy behind this is we need to get through the market. We need to flush out all these short sales. We need to flush out the foreclosures. We need to flush out the short sales. They're making it so it's easier to be accomplished so that we can get it done quicker. Because we're not going to get back to a traditional economy and move and start progressing forward until we get rid of all the problems. One of the problems is all these bad loans and upside down houses. How do you get rid of them? You got to allow the individuals to get out without consequences. So in order for us to go forward, we're going to have to take a step back. Step back meaning let's wash out the system so that we can go forward. So that's why I'm going to adjust my timetable here, and I'm going to add another year. So now it's a year and a half from this date forward.
So does this apply to non-owner occupied then, investment properties?
It doesn't say, it just says residential property. It says a unit for secured by a deed trust. It doesn't say rental property. It doesn't say owner property. It doesn't make that distinguishment. So I would argue that yes, it could apply to a rental property on that, but then you have the other consequences of the taxes on that, which I'm not a tax attorney. I just know that there's consequences when it's not your primary residence. It doesn't say it has to be your primary residence. It doesn't say no visitors shall be collected deed of trust for primary residence. It says for a dwelling of not more than 4 units. So it's a residential dwelling, not more than 4 units. It doesn't say if it's your primary residence, if it's your rental property, or if it's your brother's, cousin's, nephew's, whatever, that's in your name. It doesn't say that. It just says dwelling. So I'd make the argument that yes, it would apply to rental properties. It doesn't apply to, just in case you have a couple investment properties like limited liability companies, not going to help you out, sorry. Corporations and political subdivisions of the state. So if you have an LLC as an investment vehicle that owns the property and you go through a short sale and it goes down that way, this is inapplicable to that. You have a corporation that you use thinking that you're going to step around the liability aspect of it and you sold the property at short sale, it's not going to protect you on that either. Why did they do that? You want to take a guess? They're not going to allow individuals that use it as their investment vehicles to protect them. They wanted it to be more the average home buyer that maybe had 1 property or 2. When you take out the LLCs and you take out the corporations, you take out the individual that has 30 rental properties that are owned by different LLCs and got overhead. Because of the guy that was selling that program, everybody saw the commercials, said, I can help you make money. Just make an LLC and buy another house and buy another house.
Yeah.
Questions? Yes.
If you have an agreement and you have to get an extension, which happens constantly, you have to extend, then that negates the previous amount. The seller then can come back for more, because I had a second say, if you don't close by this date, you're gonna need an extension and we are going to ask for more money.
Well, yeah, because if you look at it from the standard contract position, you're asking them to modify the original agreement. I need an extension. They said, not a problem. You need an extension. We need more money. So they can do that, it's consideration. It's basic concept principles. If you want something other than what's already agreed to, and the other side wants to say, yeah, I'm allowing you to do that, but here are my terms, that's how it goes. So how do you do that? You try to close on the first date. Don't allow that door to open again, because you don't want that door to be open.
Yay.
It is good news because I
good
think it is gonna help facilitate the short sales to go through. The problem is you're gonna run into some sticking points with the seconds, and some of them are gonna try to get their back up and they're say, well, we're not gonna agree to anything then. Okay, well then what are you gonna do?
But those are the ones that we're already doing that
And
anyway.
PNC and Green Tree.
PNC, Green Tree.
And what you have is generally at PNC and Green Tree, you have a major bank that holds the first note. It's
Right.
not one of the lower ones, it's usually like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase that hold the first, and then they got the backup from Lending Tree or PNC going down that way. Those banks have the ability to put the pressure on them and say, look, we're not gonna foreclose. If you can get them to say, we're not gonna foreclose, you do it, that's gonna change their tune, because now it's like, wait a second here. If we foreclose now, we're paying all these monies to get this accomplished, and guess what? You're the only one that's gonna benefit. We're still gonna have to end up suing you for the second. Do we wanna pay all this money that we can't claim later on to sue you for the amount of money that's over here, or do we just wanna be done with this now and take the 10,000 and be on our way? But you're gonna have to get your first negotiator on the same page with you, and if you could actually get them to say, well, yeah, you're right, we're not gonna foreclose because we're willing to accept this deal. But they're not gonna do that, because legal says, oh, you can't tell that. But you could get them to make a phone call. Call this person, would you? Tell them you guys are not gonna walk away from this deal, and then it's silly not to take it. But once again, it all boils down to getting the right person on the other end of the phone. I know everybody in this room has had the frustration of beating their head against the wall, talking to one person, and then when it finally comes down to crunch time, you get the right person on, and they say, yeah, okay, we'll do it. It makes more sense, let's get this deal. And unfortunately, there's probably, I'm convinced, there's 3 of them in America. And it takes a while to get to them.
Yeah, it does.
And they all work at one or two of them are at different banks, and then the other one, he's a free floater. He just goes with
So you know how to get to
Another side for those of you that are doing purchases of foreclosures and selling them, when you do the notices to the tenants or the owner occupants on that, the law did change. Now you have to send them a nice little letter and post it at the same time that says, hey, by the way, we bought your house and you have rights that you should probably talk to an attorney, and that you have entitlements to certain periods of time that you can be in there, and, oh, don't mind me if I sue you, because you can go install it out another 6 or 7 months. It's the most ridiculous letter in the world, but you have to do it by statute. If you need a copy of that letter, let me know. I got one, and you can post it with your 3-day, 90-day.
Is that bank owned REOs?
Yeah,
Okay.
because Bank of an REO, how did they get it? They have through foreclosure. So before you do that, you gotta post those. If you don't post them, and they don't wanna move out, and you go to evict them, they're gonna raise it as a defense, saying, well, I didn't get proper notice. And they say, well, no, I did my 30-day, 90-day, and they say, yeah, but according to section 1162 of the SIL code, you're supposed to give me a letter to tell me that I could have went and saw an attorney, that I had 90 days, that there was all these things that I could have done, but you didn't tell me. And guess what? You get to start all over again. It's on, you have to post it regardless if you buy a foreclosure. I don't know whether the court's gonna allow the owners to get away with that, but I know they're allowing the tenants to get away with it.
That's for
Occupants of the property.
If you buy a foreclosed property.
You buy it foreclosed, it's just better to post it no matter what.
Yeah.
Because then they're not allowed to come back and say, well, I didn't get it. And the homeowners, they're getting very
Savvy.
savvy. Well, Google it. How to stall an unlawful detainer in foreclosure. And say the first thing you do is you file a demurrer, send it out as far as you can. Okay, so you do that. It forces the attorney to go an ex parte in short time, and they get that. Generally, we're able to prevail on that. Then they file a motion to quash. After the motion to quash, it's got to be 3 to 7 days hearing on that, but it stalled it out another week. And then after the motion to quash, they try to file a motion to strike, but they can't file a motion to strike because they already filed a demurrer, but that doesn't matter. You still have to go down and point that out to the court that they're not allowed to do that. So now you're 2 months out, and it takes a while in the legal process. You gotta love the internet, huh? There's nothing more frustrating when you see the same motion over and over again and all they've done